Hello, I'm Navrina Singh. I'm the founder and CEO of Credo AI, and today I am thrilled to have this conversation with Brad Mallard, the CTO of Version One. Brad, welcome.
Hi, Navrina. Great to see you again. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Brad, you've had a very exciting career. So let's start from there. Tell us a little bit more about your role at Version One and also who is Version One?
Great. So well, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Version 1 family. We are 3,500 people, digital and AI transformation specialist, actually. So we have a heritage in Oracle, but the primary function of Version 1 is to deliver value in the world we're now on, how do companies transform and embrace AI and emerging technology really for good, but do so sustainably, responsibly, and with the levels of trust you'd expect from a very kind of trusted organization like Version 1. So we primarily focus in the UK, Ireland, but growingly also the US, with a growing footprint and customer base, primarily in regulated industries and markets, actually in public sector, financial services, or utilities and other such that generally really consider the sort of center of responsible innovation, responsible and trustworthy solutions that are critical both from a regulatory compliance perspective, but also obviously just really making sure their customer experience is as good as it can possibly be.
Brad, tell us a little bit more about your journey personally, because, prior to version one, you were at Fujitsu. So you've seen a lot of these transformations and AI certainly is a tipping point. So maybe talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing in the AI landscape, especially from your background.
Yeah, look, I've spent a lot of time prior to the time as the CTO at Version 1 in one of the global service integrators, actually a leader in a number of patents, and AI was a center of what that organization do with hundreds of different solutions and elements of IP to bring to bear. So the world's changed a lot though since the more traditional AI, the machine learning of the world, which is very technical, very data, very sort of mathematical in context, to this world of generative and now agentic AI, which is actually all about solving problems and understanding kind of how you apply technology to address a certain need. And it's far more in the business delivering value, considering the landscape of data and people, and then applying technology to it than maybe some of the sort of technology only kind of approaches of the past. So I think my journey is all about as originating as a customer client side, kind of working in government actually, and then working for myself, working for a small building company. I've sort of dabbled and understand the needs of clients and what they require. I've always got most value of how do you consider and how do you innovate in the context of delivering value first, but then really sort of dabbling and bringing cutting edge technology and innovation, of which AI is the technology I've never seen for so long, over 30 years of experience in working with everything from the client server era through the world of cloud, the sort of digital transformation era. And now we're in this sort of precipice of the world turning towards how we will see societal transformation and business transformation using technologies like generative and agentic AI, and ultimately the world that brings with it as business-oriented data and solutions. So,
So, Brad, as you know, I think you and I are seeing this and have the front row seat to AI transformation in enterprises. I'm curious, in addition to the opportunity, could you talk a little bit more about what are the biggest hurdles you're seeing to enterprise AI adoption, especially in not only the sectors version one is serving, but also the clients that you're serving?
yeah, no, I think it's a great question. Look, depending upon which analyst you prefer, depending which consultancy you prefer, with Big Fours and the like, the GSIs even, the industry norm is currently about 8 to 20% of production workloads or sorry, 8 to 20% of production AI solutions. So how many solutions have actually entered into production? And that for us isn't enough. Our percentage now currently is in excess of 60% of the 120 plus solutions in the last 12 to 18 months we've built. But there's a reason for that, and those reasons are really important, I think. And and aren't well considered enough. Most people start with technology. They start with, well, let's deploy Copilot. Let's go in there. Well, we've got use case number one, fantastic. Let's go and put some technology in there. Well, the reality is very different, actually. Most customers, most clients, most organizations start on exactly that footing of, look at this fantastic technology. What really becomes super important is actually then, right, well, great, that was a success. What next? Or more so in things like Copilot, also we've invested in this technology. How do you get the best from it? And it becomes a business change and rather than a technology program. Where we sort of change the game is really helping clients, and this is the sort of tip to take away for any business actually, is how do you bring it back to establishing the right level of foundations. So a sustainable, responsible innovation and solution kind of basis is ultimately about the foundations you build on, whether that's data, it's security, it's people and skills, but it's also the policies, the regulations, the guide rails, and the platform that you enable that to be delivered from, which is where our relationship with Credo comes in as the underpinning, kind of key element of responsible innovation, of making sure you can do that within the confines of legalities to protect the business. But those elements combined with a kind of working backwards from a business first, value centric delivery model. How do you deliver return on investment? How do you deliver fantastic customer experiences? How do you deliver growth? All that good stuff everybody wants to do is ultimately built upon this foundation of responsible innovation, which is where Credo AI and version 1 are best together.
Oh, well, that's a really good segue, Brad, into our partnership. We are really excited to partner with version 1. And, we've obviously just started on this journey, but maybe talk to me a little bit about, version 1 had a choice of a lot of different vendors and partners you could go with. Why Credo AI? And also, I'm very curious in your own trusted AI governance program after you made the choice with Credo AI, what are some of the standout highlights you might already be seeing within your own internal use of Credo AI?
Yeah, look, so firstly, you're right. Obviously, we've selected Credo after a market analysis of other platforms that do similar-ish technology kind of and governance for us to bring to bear. Now, I think what's important to consider here is that the reason we chose Credo is one, the credentials of the market, the kind of the relationships with Microsoft. We're also a market leading partner of the year several times with Microsoft, as we are with Amazon, as we are with Oracle. And so the breadth of the sort of technology relationship is the first sort of element that's very strong for us. But actually, what the analysis that kind of really kind of hit the nail on the head for me was about, look, we looked at how do we build this ourselves and how do we look at investment in the legalities, looking at the complexity of the landscape. So your plugins and your legal teams that are constantly looking at the various changes in compliance across the world, the policies across the world, the executive orders, latest and greatest that change by the wind, all these sort of positions it would cost any organization, and we're no different, a huge amount of money to make sure or maintain a legal position that is up to date and relevant. Now, that was the kind of primary thing. We bought that ourselves. We're using it ourselves. We underpin our EU AI Act compliance with that, given that's now a production real life thing that everybody in Europe has to contend with for at least the time being. That again is promising change. We also work in the UK. How do you manage the UK? We have Indian delivery centres. Great. How do you deliver solutions across India? How do you deliver that in Spain? And then how do you deliver across 50 plus different states in the US with large leading financial services, banks, insurers, and other such? There's no way an organisation can track the policy and regulatory and the guide rails required across all that very well, let alone and then ensuring you apply the compliance element to it. So we thought, right, let's look at the market, let's look at outsourcing that. And actually, the best platform we could find was Credo by some mile. Understanding that market, that we can then focus on how we build solutions that are compliant for customers, as well as make sure our own internal use cases, productivity, solutions, and AI also remain compliant to the EU AI Act and in various different markets across the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. So I think, as I would love to go maybe a little bit deeper into the industries you're serving. You mentioned, regulated sectors, healthcare, finance, and others. What AI risks are keeping up your clients at night? And I'm very curious, how is version one helping them not only with the risk that this new technology presents, but also the upside and the top line growth that they can get from AI?
Great. So look, Version One are working very closely with a number of clients across different industries: pharma, life sciences, healthcare, central government, devolved government, retail banking, investment banking, insurance, utility vendors and providers. Regulated industry is what we do every day at scale. Ultimately, it's about working in very sensitive, secure, complex, regulated environment. The world of AI over the last 2 or 3 years, especially the generative AI addition, because AI, traditional AI, is not new for many of those organizations. The shift became ChatGPT and the board level encouragement everybody was getting at the C level to go and drive this across the business. Um, Ultimately, we're helping them do that. But I'd say most projects start and innovate. They come back to do that well, is to establish the foundations responsibly for success and sustainable success to really drive the business value. So that there's ideals here where single use cases we've seen for multiple clients deliver 10 to 20x return on the investment and delivered multi-million-dollar per annum savings just with single deployed use cases. But those are sensitive. We need to make sure the accuracy is there. We need to make sure that they're protected. We've actually, obviously, ourselves have maintained our own compliance through the likes of EU AI Act and the risks of the different levels of perceived risk from critical to high risk to lower risk and limited risk, etc. Those come with up to 7% of your global turnover. It's even more applicable than a GDPR nature of the policies to our own profitability and as well as our customers. So we have to do it well. We have to maintain compliance with it. One of the leading examples I would suggest is the work we're doing with one of the leading European and international banks, actually, in establishing their own uh, responsible AI governance boards and approach. And where that comes to its own is actually tens, dozens, hundreds now of use cases come to the fore as the world of AI has become open and more transparent. Everybody's talking about it and aware of the technology and what it can do. What you can't do is just go and deploy that within a large bank, right? You can't just go and hit the button and go, great, we'll all do that. The concept of shadow AI is now a real thing. But ultimately, we've helped them shape the board that makes sure AI it works within the confines of compliance and banking and financial services regulation, not that they change the regulation to fit AI. And that's a really important element. It's about business first, about responsible innovation, not just about technology. So we've built the processes, we've built the board, we manage the board, we sit on the board, we provide the technology input, and then we use platform from Credo AI to help ensure the compliance of that continued banking innovation.
Thank you for that, Brad. And it's interesting because we work a lot with Global 2000s and we have a very strong partner network. And a recognition that we've had after we've created this category, 4.5 years ago of AI governance, that AI governance is a lot of it is about like building trust in artificial intelligence. And as we think about AI governance, it has three core components. One is really thinking about, how do you enable trusted AI adoption within an enterprise, whether it is discovering shadow AI use cases, whether it is third-party vendor assessments, etc. Second, it is about understanding AI risk and mitigating them to the extent you can as an organization and transparently sharing that risk management with your clients. And third is about compliance, whether it is compliance to standards or emerging regulations. And I think the fundamental thing we find with AI governance is it truly is the infrastructure of trust that artificial intelligence needs. So I'm curious, in your experience, Brad, are you seeing the clients that you're serving where AI governance is embedded in all their processes, that trust is becoming a strategic lever for them in the organization, and it is becoming that competitive advantage?
Yeah, look, I really like the three-tier approach of AI governance: trust, risk, and compliance. Um, Compliance is relatively straightforward and understood in that, the reason you do this stuff is to be compliant because of regulatory policy X and Y and the risk of global fines or financial impact to the organization. I mean, that's starting to become more understood, especially in Europe when you've got the EU AI Act, for example. Obviously, changing policy everywhere makes it more complex for others. Risk, clearly, the technology is changing so fast, but the risk of stuff like hallucinations, we all know this sort of phraseology now that generative AI has brought to the fore. I think that is something that you have to be able to control and be aware of reputationally to make sure, again, your business not only has got the regulatory overheads of fines and other such, but you've got a responsible, engaging platform that gives the right level of value and doesn't introduce, front page news, front page of X and regular, kind of complaints from clients, or worse, maybe, kind of puts you in a difficult legal position. The one I don't think gets enough understanding in airplay is actually that trusted element. Now, trust is a big word and it comes in many forms, but the speed of trust is super important. Once you can build it, decisions get made. The ability to progress is rapid. Um, the world of AI solutions, the world of AI transformation, actually, is one where there's hundreds of many use cases, business processes, solutions, and also probably hundreds of amounts of different technology vendors when you start to look at different sort of point solutions. Now, all that kind of comes together in the way of, well, who do you trust? How do you trust it? And if you try and do that in an unstructured way without a platform to be able to understand how to control that, ultimately you're going to struggle to be able to operate at the speed the business will benefit from. And if you get that right, you're a market leader. The business and AI strategies go hand in hand now, in that value creation is made based upon a very effective AI strategy. Um, Trust is the key to that. Trust enables you to operate at speed, and a platform that gives you the right guide rails, policies, the ongoing rapid evolution of technology and policy and governmental and legal framework evolution, absolutely critical. That with a solid foundation of security. And the key bit I would say to all of this is the right skills and getting you the right level of support right through your different parts of your life cycle of projects. The foundations of AI are all built upon trust, whether that's the right ecosystem, the right technology, the right platform, the right skills. But I think that's where the likes of version one and Credo AI have really done a great job working together, and delivering a solid, robust foundation for so many clients.
No, thank you. And I think, Brad, that is really excellent description, because what we find with our partners is, one, their internal use of Credo AI to really understand how they should be governing artificial intelligence. But then the second is wrapping services around Credo AI platform and making those solutions available to clients so that as they are navigating this very quickly moving, not only capabilities in artificial intelligence, but also the scale in the use of AI within their business organizations, that joint solution from version one and Credo AI can really come to bear. Brad, just shifting gears a little bit into the future, something that you said earlier in the conversation was around agents. And as we know, AI is becoming more autonomous. Agents are here. Whether they are in production or not is yet to be seen. We aren't seeing many clients put agents in production, but as you can imagine, that is really the topic of the hour, if you will. So as you think about especially AI governance, what guardrails do you feel are most urgent to ensure, especially in agentic AI, that we are making sure that this AI is actually aligned with business outcomes and also with the consumer value that we need to drive through these AI-based solutions?
Yeah, look, I think the world of agentic AI, I think we're at the very start of, and I mean, there's an awful lot at the moment of market noise, overselling, agentic washing, call it what you like. And we're not really seeing large scale production, truly autonomous agents. An agent for me is something that takes action and does so autonomously. Uh, That said, agentic AI will come, and it's coming fast, and it is inevitable. The challenges, I think, are really important in that, from a security risk posture perspective, it brings a very different flavor even to generative AI and traditional AI that went before, in the context of um, potentially taking on individuals' personas and user kind of, sort of credentials and other such, and taking action in their context if you don't do it so well. I mean, so there's an obvious technical risk which still isn't really considered enough of the vendors. That said, things like agents are also embedded in devices, and having, looking at AI wearable policies. How do you make sure that you're protected against devices as well as agents, and to your business, or again reputationally, or other such? That these things are really important to wrap around the technology. I think data critical to every business. Data is ultimately there, and is the key, both either to read from for AI success, or, as you see more and more, both generative AI creating content, or agents, kind of actioning decisions and processes that impact data. How do you make sure that's correct? And so there's a whole raft of checks and balances and controls that you need to make sure is there. You need to make sure you've got the policies and the guide rails there. You need to make sure your agents are embedded in the pipelines, your data's got the automation capability built in, so you can make sure you've got ongoing compliance considered in the world of agent and agentic AI. I think you can only do that when you're embedding technology in an automated way at scale, especially if you've got a process, or you've got a policy as an organization to democratize AI, which many are starting to do because you've got the likes of Copilot and Copilot Studio being deployed. The only way this is achievable is by embedding clever governance and risk technology, trustworthy AI, both in your pipelines, your processes, but dealing with as a platform that's well integrated to your partner ecosystem, your existing technologies, like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Google, but also with your security tools. But something like Credo AI at the heart of that is absolutely critical, and we see this being a growing opportunity that, and risk if not done well for any organization. So look, we're using Credo AI internally to control dozens of ongoing projects, whether they're client-facing projects and solutions that we're making sure the development of version 1 are taken on is absolutely kind of in line with the regulatory controls and other such. But for us as an organization, we're ultimately making sure we are compliant first and foremost with our own policies, but also the EU AI Act. And there are other many more policies and regulatory considerations beyond that. GDPR is an obvious one. When you work in the UK, their policy around regulation is, well, how do we make sure we have an arm's length, kind of democratise, kind of push to the edge around specific sectors, or the ICO, or how do you make sure that the FCA are controlling regulation around the Financial Services Institute, for example? And all of that complexity we can't possibly consider ourselves. So, but we're building solutions, we're building accelerators, we're delivering solutions for customers around that. So that's the first area. Our internal usage of this is also in areas like HR processes, financial processes. How do we help make sure we accelerate our own bid content writing and other such? So again, this kind of internal productivity gains are also critical around the accuracy and the responsibility that we have to drive to make sure we've got accuracy and reliability of the output. Ultimately, we also work in multiple markets, so the complexity of managing those solutions across different global territories is critical, and we couldn't do it manually. Is the long and short of it. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't say the exact number, but at any one point it's dozens and dozens and dozens of solutions across different sectors from client perspective, and typically we're on a couple of dozen internal use cases at any one point as well.
Thank you, Brad. So Brad, I'm curious. I'm sure like you have a lot of CTO circles that you're part of. As these CTOs are navigating massive challenges, but also the opportunity that AI presents, I'm curious, what would you say to other CTOs who might not have invested in AI governance and trusted AI adoption? What are they missing out on?
So look, the key for me to introduce rapid, sustainable change and transformation in any company is all about establishing the foundations and having trusted innovation and responsible innovation is ultimately maybe seen by many as a blocker, a hindrance, an overhead, a complexity, a bureaucracy. And I mean, look, we've looked at that, but when you're operating in so many different markets and so many different sectors, and you are operating in different geographic kind of policies and regulation, you can't possibly maintain. I think in the UK, I know it's about 18 different policies you'd have to maintain to make sure you're compliant with the law and responsibly for that. Now do that and apply that across every country in Europe, apply that into the US, apply that into India. It becomes a solution that a manual answer just isn't there for. Um, so there's an obvious element of cost and speed of just building responsible, trusted AI. I mean, the better answer, actually, though, and the one I kind of really believe in is when you're dealing with multiple use cases, dozens or even hundreds in any organization of AI transformational business processes and value creation and growth opportunity, all of that is made better and made ultimately faster for you to innovate to production. And this is important differentiation. It's not about pilot and proof of concept. For you to get to production, you have to demonstrate and build in from the word go, responsible and trusted AI platforms and governance. When you do that, when you've built that in from the outset, you actually can get to production much faster. We've seen that with dozens of solutions over the last few months, bypass even the most complex organizations to enable us to deliver 60% plus of all of our AI solutions right to production within weeks, which is fantastic.
And I think, Brad, that is such an important component, the ROI of AI governance. There's a mindset that governance slows innovation down, but like you and I are seeing across our clients, that there is an acceleration that it brings, like whether it is reducing number of failures in production by 60%, whether it is getting to market faster. We are actually seeing procurement timelines decrease from 9 to 12 months to 4 to 5 months, whether it is, adopting AI solutions much faster. We are seeing across our clients where it could have taken them 6 months to approve a use of third-party AI that now happens within a matter of weeks. So it's like, easily 50% improvement in adopting new AI technologies. Very curious, Brad, as you see across your clients, what are some of the ROI levers that version one and Credo AI partnership is going to bring to your clients or is already bringing to your clients?
So, Navrina, I think it's fantastic for you to talk about the speed of trust. Stephen Covey, a very famous book called The Speed of Trust, talks about trust in a human-to-human relationship or a business-to-business relationship, and ultimately about once you've built trust, it's really important for you to maintain, because ultimately that is the way you get business done. It's the way you transact. It's the way you enable growth and opportunity to be created. A second, more interesting part, I think, is also I've done a lot of work in Japan, spending months and months, many years in Japan. The whole culture is based upon trust, and as a result, it's very much rapid decision making once you built it. But to get there, it takes an awful lot of time. I think we're seeing the same. AI is very different. It's very atypical to sort of technology. It's far more human-like in its interaction, and that's on many different levels. But ultimately, the speed of trust when it comes to AI is absolutely critical. When you get it right, ultimately your path to productionizing your solutions, use cases, and delivering value is second to none. Trying to do that project by project by project is just one, a frustration, but two, the time sap can be weeks, if not months, or more in some of the more complex organizations. So I would say there's not even a decision to make about the need for a platform to control trust in AI. I think it's got to be there by default, and the use cases are in the hundreds, if not thousands, of many organizations, and therefore to do that at scale, you have to get the foundation right, which is kind of data security, privacy, guide rails, people and skills, but ultimately about governance of AI and emergent technology, which is where I think Credo AI and version one have really sort of had a lot of success. So some of the benefits of that have come through, say, single use cases. There's one in particular I can think of, 3.5 million 10x returns within about 8 to 9 weeks end to end of deploying a solution. once you've got the foundation right, once you've built, you've got the platform in place, you've got the pipelines in place, you've got the policies and the guide rails there, that would have taken more like 6 months probably than 6 to 8 weeks. Right? So kind of there's another client that kind of using just general RAG search and summarization, saving 5 hours a day for over 100 people every day and saving them millions a year in what they're using. Now we couldn't do that without the confidence that the data is in good shape, that the solution, because it's regulatory information, it's health and safety information, it's summarization of costs and sort of medical information. This stuff is really important. And then one final use case, I think, which surprised me actually, but in the context of trust and risk, is working with a charity. How do you internationalize and globalize really important information to do with medical records or medical information or medical insights? And actually, look, you can't get that stuff wrong. You can't provide a recommendation to public or even just health experts without having confidence that the platform is in keeping with regulatory compliance and regulatory policy, whether it's GXP or as at the more complex end, but just generally the accuracy of the information. You want to make sure you've got a solid foundation to deliver trusted information like medical records and like engaging health and safety kind of insights. And they're the sort of benefits, I think, of doing robust, responsible innovation. And thinking about sustainability at the heart of this is kind of where I think we see massive opportunity. That charity is now able to address a global audience that it once couldn't by enabling translation of their material into dozens of different languages as a result.
Wow, that's really impressive, Brad. Final question, and I really appreciate your time here, but as we look ahead, and as the need for not only AI governance, but this need for trust in artificial intelligence grows, what excites you most about our partnership, between version 1 and Credo AI, and what do you hope that we are going to disrupt together?
Look, I thoroughly enjoyed working with you, Navrina, and your team in establishing Credo AI into version 1 ourselves, but ultimately also delivering that with clients across the world. Now, the landscape isn't considered enough when it comes to AI governance. Most implementations of AI governance are around compliance and risk. They don't consider the opportunity of operating with trust in the infrastructure of trust, the speed of trust, and ultimately having Credo AI for us is the leading platform that enables us to be able to build a platform that can deal at the speed of change, the speed of transformation that our clients want, but have suffered and not been able to get with the complexities of modern cutting edge AI through the likes of the Microsoft relationships and the Copilot and the AI Foundry integrations. It means we can operate technically with a highly automated fashion, but responsibly to help build the trust to enable transformation to go into production at a speed it never would have been able to do without, which I think is the killer for me. And I think many organizations are at their first steps into this. That means for us, it's a great opportunity together to go and deliver more value. And the more we've built that ourselves means we've learned from our own lessons and now be able to apply that with experience of being, how do you become an AI native, an AI first, an AI forward organization?
Well, Brad, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate first you making time. And secondly, I think there's so much of key work our companies have to do together. So really excited about the next steps here.